It's like when you're in bed at like 11:30 and you're getting how to build a rag pipeline on Instagram. It's like, I don't know if this is exactly what I wanted to unwind right now, but I'm glad I'm looking at this now, I suppose.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to the art and science of observability. This is Signal Over Noise. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Signal Over Noise. So for today's episode, we are going to dig into how we're staying up to date in a world that's constantly changing. We're also going to talk about how we try and strike a balance so that we're not in this overconsumption trap. So for today's episode, we actually have our biggest guest group ever. So instead of having me introduce them, I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. So welcome, team.
Hey everyone, I'm Nathaniel. I'm a senior software engineer at ElastiFlow. Excited to talk about this. It's a cool concept.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I am a software engineer at ElastiFlow, and I've been here about a month. So really excited to jump right into the podcast with you all.
And hello, my name's James. Some of you may recognize me from the Journal Club videos that we've been putting out. But yeah, excited to be on the podcast finally.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So I thought we'd start off this episode by talking about some of the challenges that we face when trying to learn, when trying to keep up to date with maybe the latest developments in the tools that we use or what's going on in the world of AI, right? Because it can't be a tech podcast without us talking about AI somewhere. So Nathaniel, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, we're dealing with more content than ever before. So our muscles that many of us have honed over years of working in tech or just kind of, being news connoisseurs, of being able to identify what is a reputable source, who's trying to sell me something, those kind of things. Those muscles are having to have a workout now. And in some ways they're getting overworked a little bit. So we're really being asked to process more information, I think, than we have before. And so what does that mean broadly for as we go through our day? How do I start my day? And how do I make a chunk of time that I've dedicated to maybe processing, over coffee, some news? How do I make that efficient, right? How do I not end that period of time with it not being a waste of time?
Like that. So you referenced like a workout, like trying to make your workouts more efficient too.
There you go. Yeah.
Better consume things. That's interesting. Elizabeth, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges I'm facing is just essentially, it is a lot to process, and I don't want to just kind of over process and not fully comprehend everything that I'm learning. I think sometimes AI can give you kind of this false narrative that you understand a subject well, and then you can kind of go back to the topic a few days later and be like, wait, hang on, let me reprocess that all and make sure I really understood it and it stuck with me. Yeah.
That's such a good point. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And James, what about you? Coming from, the academic side with our journal club, I'm really curious to get your perspective.
Yeah. I like to think of the issue that keeps me up at night more is kind of the educational perspective on the broader public and the amount of disinformation that can be out there, even just surrounding like AI technologies. Like the amount of conversations I've had with a lot of my non-technical friends where will just be sold and believe any sort of snake oil that gets shipped towards them and think, the AI will be the second coming that will save us all. It's a little concerning. And, since we're all like more technical savvy people here, we usually can cut through that pretty easily ourselves. Like we can say like, these are just prediction models. Like, yes, you can do some really cool things with them and it is going to be really impactful, but this isn't going to be the life-changing saving grace that we all think it will be. So I don't know, that's the type of thing that I've been wrestling with and thinking, is it really worth arguing with my like family members or other friends about this? I'm like, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, we pick and choose our battles. So now that, those are challenges that we're facing, let's talk about some of the things that we're doing in our day-to-day to stay up to date. And we talked a lot about AI. And I don't know if y'all heard, but there's this little announcement about Mythos. So maybe we'll start with that as an example. I feel like everyone had an opinion about it, right? So how do you sift through all that noise to understand what actually matters and what's really going on?
Yeah, so for that, I know that my first inclination, I don't remember exactly what the source was that I first heard about it, but I pretty quickly was right on Anthropic's website, just kind of reading the actual announcement. Like, what are they saying about this? They're the ones that are, putting this out in the world. And I think with a lot of this is sort of actually, to James's last point, as things sort of distill through the news, like away from our bubble in tech, like my barometer is always like, am I hearing about it from my father? Like, is it making it all the way out to NBC Nightly News and then back to me, via him saying what's going on?
As a hit mainstream.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's not to say there aren't interesting things to hear from those sources, but it's definitely like, if the only place you're getting if you work in tech, let me say that, if you work in tech and the only place you're getting your tech news is from like NBC Nightly News, maybe reevaluate that and kind of go back and definitely go to those primary sources and, understand what somebody is commenting on, rather than the comment, because that's going to enable you to get better at understanding what your, and not just opinion, but your understanding of it is, and where you can go with that, and then where you need to seek out other opinions on it. So it's one thing to take the primary source, right? And I think to gather, this is all very straightforward, but I think we need a reminder of this sometimes, especially as we continue to get bombarded with these things from all directions. How do you break down a piece of news and understand your context within it, your desire to understand the broader picture, and where do you go from there? Yeah. So that happened with Mythos was a good example of that, because I had to, it's everybody's talking about it. So who do I want to listen to?
Yes, and I would add to that, I think we all are so lucky to be able to just like reach out to each other, other individuals in this space, and just quickly just like ask their thoughts on it. Yeah, I feel so lucky to have the relationships with the other software engineers here.
And Elizabeth, I think you have a unique perspective too, being in the Bay Area, right? Like you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, so I run Web AI Wednesday. It's once a month, and it's really great because it's virtual. So you have people coming in from all over the world, but a lot of people from the Bay Area. And with that, we talk about latest model releases. We talk about client-side AI, so running models locally, and the privacy concerns there, and also the cost effectiveness. And I will say, like, that group to me throughout this whole journey has been so like therapeutic, so to speak, because the relationships I've built there have truly transformed my capabilities, connected me with a lot of people, and I've learned a lot. And I think the best way to learn, especially in this era, is honestly just like teaching and having these conversations with people. AI is wonderful for consuming all that information, but you're going to process things a lot more in depth when you're actually having conversations with real people. And I will say, and those real people are also processing at the same speed as you, right?
How do you go about curating some of the info for that? Because it sounds like you guys cover a whole lot every month,
Oh yeah, I feel very lucky because the Web AI lead at Google, Jason Mays, is incredible in this community. He's so involved and he attends pretty much every event. And Josh from Hugging Face sometimes goes, and we're really lucky to have him talk about some of the model releases. I'm sure there's a few other people I'm forgetting to plug, but it's really great. Between all of that, it's like the connections you form enables you to just bring in a lot of people with a lot of new content every month, which is awesome. And
great.
this one, and this one we're bringing in someone from more of the legal space. They're going to be talking about like Web AI in the legal sector and the privacy benefits of it, which is really exciting.
Awesome. And we'll link to that information in the resources too. So if you're interested, definitely go ahead and check that out. James, what about you? World of AI, how we staying up to date on things.
Yeah, we've touched on this before, but there really is so much information that it's hard to keep track of, what's relevant. Am I missing something or not? So I don't know, I take a unique approach that I wouldn't recommend for everyone, that I could say is akin to death by 1,000 cuts, but it's like informed by 1,000 sources, if you will. So I've just kind of saturated all of my different feeds online, from email, news websites I use, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, whatever it is. I have, I guess, influencers there, or people I'm subscribed to and follow, that will post information or, repost academic papers that they came across, or, talk and deep dive about a technical subject or something like that. And so that's kind of great because I can just see inspiration and get new information from any random source, and I kind of never know where it's going to happen in any given day. But that's
How
also, it's
exciting.
like a
Just,
lot.
waiting
Yeah.
for
It's like when you're in bed at like 11:30 and you're getting how to build a rag pipeline on Instagram. It's like, I don't know if this is exactly what I wanted to unwind right now, but I'm glad I'm looking at this now, I suppose.
I
And
love
there's
that. And you
worse
touched on
things to
something
see.
really interesting. I think the diversity of thought is really important in this, and where you get these
100%.
sources, different media formats too, right? So not just podcasts like these, meetups like yours, Elizabeth, of course, LLMs, but also forums, and looking to where else we can get these unique insights and almost pit them against each other, right?
Exactly. And I think, especially in the age of AI, with how fast updates come out and how, I don't know, oversold, I guess, to put it lightly, a lot of these small improvements can be. It's good to have varying perspectives to be like, okay, like obviously the model provider is going to pitch this as one way, and some of the people who maybe are using it, on the ground would have a more realistic and, a non-biased approach to it. So being able to see both sides of the fence in that way is really helpful when you're then trying to make your own rationale or decisions on what to do with all the news coming out.
Right. You have to look at your own biases and, understand if you're naturally inclined to be skeptical of these models and be, or even like kind of doomsday where it's going to destroy all, everybody's job and whatever.
Yeah.
Then, perhaps seek out a different opinion. Maybe you're not going to agree with it immediately, but like, broaden that a little bit, broaden your perspective is not only is it probably going to improve your mental health a little bit in that way, but, seek different opinions.
Yeah, and I think it's an exciting time to, like be creative about how are you gonna like kind of show up in this new era of AI and put yourself out there and set yourself apart. Look at it as an opportunity to be creative and think outside of the box and yeah, try it. Have fun keeping up. Don't stress it too much.
I like that. Not seen it as a chore, but seeing it as a creative outlet. That's reassuring. I like that a lot. So let's double click and talk about, tools that we use in our day to day. So we talk about like our tech stack, the languages that we use. So much is changing so quickly. How are you staying up to date with your tech stack, with the tools, with whatever it might be in your day to day?
At least for me, like I like to venture into the realm of like academic papers, even if they're not fully published. A lot of these, AI companies are publishing white papers, which are essentially just internal documents detailing a study that they've done of some type. And these are all really interesting things, but they're incredibly rich and dense and usually take a long time to both work through and work up the motivation to actually read through. So something I use to kind of hoard all of these papers once I find them is a platform called Zotero. And this was actually from a piece of advice I got really early on in my PhD. That was essentially saying the most important thing that you can do early on is have a paper organizing system or some sort of software that can take care of that for you, because over the course of anyone's journey, as they start looking through these papers and they go through all the cross references, you're easily going to balloon to 100 plus different papers, and you can't just put that all in a folder and then know exactly which one you wanted or which topics they all covered. So Zotero has been great for that. And I've tried to bring it here to ElastiFlow and made a group where all of us can see shared edits or shared highlights on papers. So anyone who wants to check out a paper I talked about in Journal Club and see my highlights on it, they can just go to that shared library and then, see my comments, see my highlights. So it's great for, sharing this info as well with people.
Yeah, that's great. James is my academic source. So no, I mean, it's been nice to have that. I'm furthest removed from the educational space than my colleagues here. I graduated quite a while ago, but I like exercising that muscle of like, true research, academic research, drilling into a white paper and what are their sources and go read those sources and that kind of thing. It's something that you do have to be intentional. Once you're outside of that academic setting, you do have to be intentional if you want to continue that that kind of exploration. So that's been helpful for me for sure.
I am also in school, but it's kind of a step back from a master's program. It's just an executive program through Columbia University, and
So casually said, "Oh, it's just an executive program."
Yeah.
but it's not, it's not James with a PhD. So, but it's focused on AI engineering, and I started that over a year ago because I was like, I wanted to set myself apart as things change so rapidly, but also not just that. I really wanted to have an in-depth understanding of how the models were working and everything, how to train a model, and so much more. I really wanted to just go in depth with it, and not just have a conversation with ChatGPT or work with the models through Cursor. Like, I actually wanted to understand how they were working. And so that's been fantastic. And through that, the professors there are wonderful, and I've learned so much through them. So again, I think I always lean on the side of having conversations with people in real life, to kind of be the source of my information. And I feel very lucky to have cultivated all of those different environments, for that. I mean, there are a lot of benefits in that sense because it is so wonderful to be in a learning space with your peers, totally outside of the whole job atmosphere. You're really just in a space where you feel safe to ask any questions. Though I will say our company does an amazing job at making a really great environment for us all to ask questions, be curious, not be afraid of saying the wrong thing. And I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, I think classroom settings facilitate that even more. And when you have professors that are experts in the AI space, it really helps steer wonderful discussion.
Yeah, Sarah, you mentioned languages. Obviously, we have things that we're primarily building with in our company, Rust and Go primarily. Part of that is staying up on those languages, what's happening within those. Are there new features coming out? And then the libraries that we're using within those languages. So we've been working a lot with Arrow. And so I'm part of the Arrow Discord, and finding those things that I know I'm in the weeds on, and then finding other people that are equally in the weeds, who are throwing things out there. Maybe, I might see something that somebody is having the same problem as me with that library or those kind of things. And then that also helps me to understand the timeline of releases. If we're expecting a release shortly, and then what's happening in the community there, toward new features that maybe something I need is coming out in 2 releases or something like that. And it informs my architectural decisions and how to move forward with some of the things that we're working on here. And also a plug for us as well. I won't say that.
What's wrong with the plug? It's our
What's
podcast.
wrong with a plug, right? Well, it's just okay. It's a plug for within the Cloud Native Computing Foundation Slack. We have a channel for our product Merman, which is open source, and we want people to come and to work on this project with us. So we encourage people to go check that out, where we have all of our discussion for this product. We've moved out of our internal channels and into the space where everybody can see. So we really get buy-in and get an understanding, a communal understanding of what we're building. So that's been exciting to have out there.
Yeah. And if you're curious about kernel development or how eBPF programming works, that's a great place to talk to, real people. As we've been talking about, that helps a lot when you can ask someone a question and kind of get a human response back or a discussion, because there's a lot to learn there if you want to get in and start helping. And, we'd be happy to onboard anyone, right?
Yeah. Humanizing eBPF, I think, is a good thing. If you're trying to learn eBPF solely from Gemini, it's going to be a little pain.
Yeah, good luck. Good
painful.
luck with that.
Awesome. And we'll link to that CNCF Slack down below and more information on Merman. But absolutely, thank you for plugging that. That was from an engineer, not from a marketer. So just want to make sure everyone can bear witness to that there. All right. Let's move on to the next segment. I would love to talk about some good rules of thumb, best practices, recommendations. What can you share from your learning about learning with our audience, and maybe even touch on some areas that we'd like to get better in?
Yeah, I think this is going to look a little bit different for everyone. I know for myself, I need to get a little bit better at organizing that first hour, or whatever I'm reading over coffee, and curating sort of what's coming in is going to make my life a lot easier, and I think end up understanding. Do you have a deeper understanding of what I'm kind of trying to bring in and understand? But yeah, it's going to look different for everybody. I think if you're relying exclusively on the algorithm to bring you all of your information, I think you're going to end up overloaded and probably a little bit burnt out. And you're going to get fed a lot of stuff that really doesn't help you understand what you're trying to understand. One thing that has worked for me in this is that I don't really spend a whole lot of time on Twitter or social media, so to speak. In the traditional socials. What's been helpful for me is Mastodon and the Fediverse, which is still a little bit, some people know about it, some people don't. Sarah, we were talking about it earlier.
It hasn't reached your dad yet, maybe?
It has not reached my dad.
It
no,
does not, yeah.
Really, yeah. The day he tells me about Mastodon is the day pigs fly. I don't know. But within Mastodon, it's great. There's a lot of academics, a lot of people that are just sharing because they want to share about what they might be working on, or opinions that they have. But there's also a really strong culture of hashtags, which is sort of been lost, I think, on some of these other socials as the algorithm has just sort of driven more and more content your way. You don't have to put hashtags in, and I think leaning on those, like, you follow the hashtag you want to know about, and you get 4 or 5 different people. An academic paper might come out, somebody puts it out there, the person who wrote it is on there, and then there's differing opinions and a good amount of chatter, and it's a little bit like a Reddit meets Twitter sort of, but with none of the toxicity of either. So
yeah, I remember 4 years ago or so, for no particular reason, there was a mass exodus of the security community and research group from Twitter, or I guess X right now, to Mastodon. So I know that's like a big hub for all of this sorts of stuff. Like you say, they want to share their work. They're really eager to talk about it. And yeah, it's a great place to get good, really cutting edge stuff on security and privacy research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you don't want to get bogged down with this as well. You do want to understand when to drill down. And I think it can be helpful to have some summaries come your way and curate those summaries, and then be able to easily drill down. And that's another muscle you got to work out.
Now, this is everyone's first time on Signal Over Noise, but it's time for hot takes. And so now, team, during this segment, we like to talk about some maybe controversial opinions or the hill that we are willing to die on. So what are your hot takes when it comes to staying up to date, education, everything that we talked about on this podcast? Let's go around and do some hot takes.
Yeah. So I'm happy to start. I think it's important to note that right now, with trying to keep up, there's a lot of pressure to kind of be this jack of all trades, and I think it's really important to hone in on one skill set, really know your tech stack, figure out what industry you want to be in, pursue that wholeheartedly, and become an expert in that space. I think that's really what's going to set people apart. And I would add to that, becoming kind of known in your space is important too, whether that's posting content on LinkedIn. I think that's invaluable. So yeah, that's what I would say for that.
Yeah, for me, my hot take is that a little piece of the old internet, I think, is going to come up and make an appearance more and more, and we're going to see it. I think RSS readers are going to make a comeback. And this is kind of, it's all goes all the way back to 1999, I think, was when RSS first was introduced. Really simple syndication, or real simple syndication, I can't remember exactly. But it's really simple. You just get a reader and you can subscribe to most things around the internet. So certainly, like any kind of podcast, you can set up, there are things that will even pull website updates, and things that aren't officially RSS feeds can get pulled into an RSS reader. academic journals, all sorts of things. I mean, my feed is, I only really came back to it years ago. I had one when I was in college, but I only really came back to it in the past couple months or so. But now, I get my my observability news, my AI news, my archaeology news. I'm interested in that kind of thing, and my baseball hot stove reports all come through. So in one place. So it's great. That's part of how I'm curating. Yeah, I talked a lot about curation and sort of like not getting drowned out or not drowning in material, and having one spot to have that come through. At least the summaries come through, and then you can click through to read the whole article or whatever. Has been a big part of how I'm managing it. So I think I really do think that people are gonna move back to RSS, and I think because people crave, I think, a little bit to move away from an algorithm and move away from having everything spoon fed to them, to have take back a little bit more control over that, and just make it manageable.
Yeah, my hot take isn't necessarily that hot of a take because I feel like it's a truth we already know that our education system in America has been a bit broken for a while. But I want to hone in specifically on the AI part of it, where I think that the way that our education system is designed at effectively all levels is really not prepared to handle LLM enabled students to go through this system. Like the way that we weigh homeworks, certainly with virtual learning and remote learning, like there's just so many different facets that once you introduce like LLM capabilities, you can completely bankrupt some of these students from any sort of intellectual development. And it's not going to be an easy one type of fix, although there are sweeping actions that the government could take. Something that China did that I still find kind of funny is that they have one day that is like the big, unified testing day, standardized testing for college entrance exams. And because China has, a lot of control over their internet, they were able to completely block out and black out all LLM providers on that day. So, no students, no matter where you are or what's happening, you can't access this technology to help you cheat on this test. So, maybe that's a little too dystopian for American tastes, but certainly I think we need some sort of big action to make meaningful change and help our education system keep up with the pace at which technology is improving at.
I completely agree. Those were some great hot takes. Well, everyone, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. So much was covered, and we will link to some of those resources down below in the show notes. So be sure to check those out, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time on Signal Over Noise. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Later.